Tamara Adeyemi. She's the head of content and production at Kuramo Publishing. She's done many things. She's an actor, she's a producer. She was also on Multi-Choice Talent Factory, and she's also been a TV host with Ebony Life and Spice TV. Lovely to have you. And last but certainly not the least, we've got Godwin Josiah. Anybody recognize him from the critics, special effects? He is, you're not the only one. He's literally part of an outfit in Nigeria that does special effects. It's like the only one, literally. He's like, you know, up there. He's done special productions with Morgan Freeman. We all know Morgan Freeman over here. So he's done work with the likes of Morgan Freeman. He's also done work with Kemi Adetiba Visuals, with the King of Boys. He's the co-founder and chairman of the Critics Company, special effects company. So this is a guy to know, right? Okay. So now we've set the scene. Let's start asking some really detailed questions. So we're going to have this question and answer session, you know, and then afterwards we'd love to hear from all of you. So
we just start like that. So our name is The Critics because we started out as a comedy group actually, and we were making not so funny comedy videos at some point, videos that the world will never see. But yeah, and the aim of those videos were to criticize Nollywood films that were being, you know, released as of that time. There was a large chunk of lovey-dovey, just dramatic stuff as of then compared to now, of course. And so we were making videos criticizing those particular films, and then we realized that okay, this is not working out. We are not funny. The best thing we could do is just play our part in creating the kind of films we want to see. So I would say that was what kind of like kickstarted that journey for us. Research upon research, and we came across softwares that could help us do this, and you know everything kind of just came into all that moving forward from there. Yeah.
Nice, thank you. My next question is for Tamara, Kuramo Publishing. Okay, so she works with, should I say the name of your boss? He's quite well known. He's in, for those people who feel that lawyers can't be creative, it's a former Attorney General of Lagos State, SLS, Olashola Shashere, and he's very passionate about making films about Lagos, documentaries, history films. So I want to ask you, what would you say has been the most challenging thing running a publishing house?
I want to. One is perfect.
Yes.
I think the most challenging. Did you say running a publishing house?
A publishing house, production.
So I don't really work in the publishing sector. I was actually brought in to build the production side of the company. But the most challenging thing that I think we have found is research, because we focus on educated content, finding data and research about the African continent, and just making sure that we can verify a lot of the things that we put in our films has been excruciatingly difficult. Followed closely to that, I think, would be film financing, and just the whole idea of getting people to buy in this kind of content. I remember when we made Journey of an African Colony, Netflix said to us, nobody's going to want to watch this is horrible. But then when we put it on Netflix, it was, I think, number 3 worldwide in certain regions. So at the end of the day, it's just really getting people to buy into educated content.
I like that. And I'm glad you showed Netflix that we actually want this type of content. You can't say for us what you are passionate about storytelling. I think it's worth you also setting the scene, telling us how you got into the animation business, why comics in particular, what is it about comics, and how do you tie comics to the Nigerian experience? Are we really comics?
I'll start with the fact that for the past few years, we have been concentrating our skill and everything we do on personal growth. So most projects that our efforts and works kind of go into are our personal work. So for a long time we were not, facilitating works from like outside producers or any of that. This was very intentional, of course, so we could get better. But as time went by, we began to sort of just open our arms to the industry here in Nollywood. But one thing we discovered is, okay, for instance, I'll be really honest. Visual effects. You watch a footage play, and that footage contains visual effects. So how you charge is per second. So
Per second, per second.
per second.
Okay.
And when you tell a Nollywood producer, this is how much I want to charge for this VFX, shot, and this is not standard. This is not the standard, So they get scared and they run away. They don't even continue, the conversation. And so we are presently kind of trying to find a way to be able to facilitate building the visual effects space in this industry and making sure they don't run away when we tell them, the price, which has been pretty hard. But for the sense of like working with people, most of our projects, of course, have been sort of sourced from outside of this particular industry. It is a sad realization because we were having this conversation just a few days ago, but it is really what it is at the end of the day. But hopefully we're able to sorry, I'm talking too much. One of our biggest goals, of course, is that as the critics, we're just a collective of filmmakers. We are filmmakers first. But with Comic World Limited, which is the company we run, we hope to have a sector dedicated to visual effects and train people that can facilitate visual effects for the industry here, particularly, at an affordable price. So, yeah.
Great, great. Tamara, as somebody who's been on both sides of the camera, you've been a host, TV host, and now you're behind the scenes, doing production, overseeing a team. What kind of advice would you give to creatives who want to specialize, say, in film production, or how do you actually choose what area you want to work in the creative industry? Because it's so wide. Do you start off as a TV host or in radio and then you move to the back, which is what I tend to see people do? They start off in front and then what was your journey has been similar. So what kind of advice would you give?
I would say to answer the question within the question, which was how do you choose?
Yes.
For me, and if I'm speaking just from my experience, I think the role you take chooses you. Because when I first moved back, I had this goal to be TV presenter, the face of cold days. Like, that was my only goal. And I remember the first time I met Boabudu, the first thing she said to me was, "You're trying to be a presenter, but you're like me, you're a producer." And I'm like, "I'm not a producer. I'm a presenter." And she's like, "No, you're a producer." And it was after going in that I realized that from the makeup of my being, I was a producer. I like being in control, I like power, I like organization. And I realized that being in front of the camera was a puppet. And that was my only motivation. But as I went along and I grew and matured as an individual, I found more passion and desire for production. And even within production, I've gone through multiple phases to get to where I am now, which is more on just financing and pitching and distribution as opposed to the actual management of a production.
Right.
So over time, I think as you find yourself, you find where
you fit.
Yeah.
I love that. We're going to come back to that financing question because that's a sticky issue for many creatives. Ayodele, I want to ask you something about intellectual property. So, your work involves, you're creating comics, you've got the community building with Comic-Con, you've got spoof animation, which also trains. He's also a trainer of upcoming animators as well. So you're doing a lot. How do you protect your IP? What have you been doing? Because the truth of the matter is, African creatives are not really holding the fort as much as the Western counterparts because IP is your leverage. Without IP, you have nothing. IP is what is your asset. So how have you been protecting your assets? What are you doing to expand your empire?
Okay, in terms of expanding my empire, we had to get in Olisa, Kwakoba, and solicitors.
Yay, that's us! Yes!
Because it just dawned on me that I was doing a lot of international deals now, and I wasn't careful.
Sign some wrong agreement, right?
I could get myself into a rut. So, but before then, what I did was I made a lot of noise. I make a lot of noise on social media, on platforms. I make sure that whatever I create, it goes public almost immediately. You know, many people have said, what are you doing? What are you doing? But it paid off because there was a time someone actually used one of our clips, one of our animation clips, and it kind of suggested that he was the one that made that clip.
Right.
And within an hour, social media was buzzing. People were cursing him, telling him to take it down. And you know, the guy was so scared. He brought the video down, made an apology and all that. So you know, when I began my journey, I didn't have as much finance as I had now. And I remember talking to a lawyer way back then, and the lawyer gave me a charge to copyright my work, and I ran, you know, I ran away, you know, because it was so expensive, you know, and that was what gave me that idea. Just copyright your stuff, make it into a comic book, let a sizable amount of public see it and can vouch and testify in court that, look, yes, they saw it at this time. And I realized that when you post things online, it's actually very dated, so you could actually say, look, I posted on this day,
yes.
So you can use that in the court of law. Then at a point, because I write scripts as well,
yes.
I would also email. I did that, you know,
Oh, it works. Email it to yourself,
email
to somebody else
myself
with the proof. That's
yes.
your proof. That
and I won't open it up. I'll just keep it. I still have some in Abuja, you know, that I did back then. So that's how I've been able to copyright my stuff. But I would say that having a lawyer is very, very important. You know, especially when you're trying to deal with some big guys, you know, out there. They can be very, very funny, and they can slip in some stuff in between that you actually not see. So that's how I've been able to do that.
Excellent, excellent. Choma, coming to you, you've once been quoted as saying the structure deficiency in Nollywood informed your foray into filmmaking. It's almost like, well, if they're not going to let me in, I'm going to do it myself. Yeah? Okay. So, you know, not everybody is as tenacious as you. Some people might say, you know what, I can't be a filmmaker, I can't. Let me just go get a regular banking job and just earn my 9 to 5. I can't stick it out. What advice would you give to somebody who's passionate about filmmaking and wants to even do a niche area? You are in a niche area, you know, you're doing stories that no one wants to touch, you know, like the story of the Aba women's riots, very interesting, unique stories. What would you tell people wanting to come into that space? What advice would you give? And what suggestions, so it's a twofold question. What suggestions do you have to, you never know who's listening, to the industry? How can they structure filmmaking so it's better? It might even be beyond the industry. It could be, you know, you need finance, you need all these support areas. So if you could speak to the universe now and say, I suggest that this should be done, what would you suggest? So starting off with your advice to people wanting to film.
This was my final year thesis, so.
Really? Well, that's easy then.
So I did go in. Yeah, and I think even what you said earlier to open the conversation with the data and UNESCO, I'll start with the industry first. I guess we need to take ourselves more seriously, right, as an industry. Because we're not, I always say, like, if you look at the wedding industry, for instance, now, that is actually a more built out industry. Because for every element of the industry, so whether you're just doing makeup on the day for bridesmaids, or you're providing ashwabi, or you're doing small chops, you've built businesses on the back of every element of the wedding industry, right? And people are billionaires on the back of every element of the industry. We don't have that. So what we have are more silos. So we have individual production companies who do well, but you can't count on 2 hands. You have projects, not businesses. So you find that your company is set up to make 1 film. But after it takes 2 years to make 1 film, where's the business, right? So it's not sustainable as it is. But there are a lot of things that are, I guess,
industry-wide or government-wide, we're not set up properly. So even as an industry, for instance, we can't get maybe like low-hanging fruits. We can't get from Inc. We can't get forex from the bank because we're not recognized as an industry, right? So there's so many things, but it starts with taking ourselves seriously. You know, like there's data, the Afrobeat and the music industry, they're starting to move the needle. So in film, for instance, the people who are the music video directors now actually are building businesses because they have studios, they have post-production houses, they're set up, they're making 100 music videos a year. The top, even the smaller guys, they're building out editors, they're building out cinematographers, and it's that growth that you can actually see in Nollywood now, because it's because the DPs and the cinematographers for music are now shooting film.
Right.
But you can see that something like sound hasn't improved.
That's true.
Because they don't need sound, you see.
That's true.
So it's like, it's building, so it's like, what are the elements to build the business? You know, that's why I say like, it's structure, the structure is deficient, right? And it's, even with, so there's so many like micro issues, but then also like looking at it industry-wide, as guilds, as unions, we can't negotiate. In Germany, now, Netflix pays royalties to producers.
Really?
That's the only country where because they have a producer union,
you see,
that can negotiate, right? So, but we don't do that. So I don't know what the answer is, but I think that even if we're not like individually maybe going to Abuja, but we can come together. The tech industry, as young as they are, have managed to kind of like come together.
Yes.
Right? They've managed to kind of build out what works for them. Their ups and downs, but they're figuring it out. But they already have a voice. They're writing bills. We can't sign production treaties.
That's
you
true.
know. So there's already there's movement. So it's us, I think, first thinking, okay, if we can rely on data, if UNESCO does a PwC report. So it's all of those elements that we probably have to organize and maybe get a law firm. Like if we're not the ones, if we're too busy making films, and we know that's not our strength. It's not on us to do it, to be fair. It's saying, okay, maybe we can come together, get a law firm, get a lobbyist. What do we want to achieve? You know, even if, you know, Girls Troop is going to Ghana.
Yes.
It's not coming to Nigeria.
It's going to Ghana, yeah.
But then we have the skill set. So what will happen is probably, apart from the crew that they fly in, they'll bring people from
Nigeria to Ghana. But, you know.
So it's like, I mean, there are other reasons why you can't come here, you know, just
insecurity
and all of that.
etc.
But it's just knowing that, that we just need to think of ourselves, like if we're here for the next 50 years, if we plan to be here for the next, what are the things we need to put in place and put that foundation in place. And for the individuals, I guess, for the people who are coming into film, it's hard. Like the passion is great, but I'd say the first thing to do now is form community. It's still that whole like individual mindset has to die, because film is not something you can do by yourself.
Exactly.
And it's only as strong as like the weakest link. That's why you find, oh, this film is great, but then everybody has done so much, but then you see one extra looking into the camera and then people will start critiquing us, critiquing the film or something. But it's true, you need 100 people that know what they're doing at least. So it's hard. So you have to start with community. Who can you partner with? There's some corporations that are now like I think like S16. There's some filmmakers, like he said, like he came together with his cousins. And I think that's the only way to sustain it at the first level. Who do you have similar interests with? Make films together. That's what the Yoruba film industry did, and that's what they still do. Everybody comes together, they make your film, and then everybody comes together and they make their film. So that's, I think, one way to sustain is like through collaboration, to start. And then you also have to have a side hustle, unfortunately, because you need to be able to be in for the long haul, right? So is that whole, okay, maybe I want to make films, but as a filmmaker, you can maybe only make 1 or 2 films a year, like depending. Like you can't, especially if you're self-funding or if you can't find funding, you're not making a lot. So you have to find what it is that you enjoy. I hope that doesn't take you too far away. So if you write, so maybe you sell scripts. If you're able to do other skills. Like maybe if you're able to, there are a lot of filmmakers who work as ADs, as an assistant director on other people's films, so you're still building your skill set. So there are a lot of skills that are within the industry that are still in high demand and pay well, because ADs, anyone who's working on sets has even more work to do. So maybe find a skill set that you can hone within the industry where you can have inflow. Like you can at least, you're close enough where you're not working as a geophysicist somewhere where you have to come back to it. But then you're earning an income, and then you can now form your group, not too many, because then you'll be too divergent. Maybe 3 or 4 of you can come together, and then you start making your own films. And there's so many platforms now you can put them out on. There's YouTube, there's where you build your own, even like your IG, or where you can build your own followership. So yeah, I would say those 2 things.
Awesome. Really, really insightful tips and suggestions. Now, I want to throw it open to the floor because that interaction is necessary. I may not be hitting the points that some of you want me to hit. So can I open the floor for questions? Anybody have any questions? Okay, I see someone in pink.
How you doing?
We're doing all right.
My name is Shamar. I'm a lawyer as well.
Nice.
My question is I'm from the United States.
It's obvious.
My question is are you utilizing Web3 as well as blockchain communities for your films and for the creative industry?
Who is the question for? Anybody who wants to take
the
it.
creative industry.
So yes, but not yet. I recently sent out an email to some of the lawyers at ALP, because ALP now has a blockchain division, and they're currently trying to build some structure for us on how to ensure that our projects are copyrighted or involved in the whole blockchain bridging. I'm not quite versed with it, but I understand its value, and I am looking into it, and we are trying to build structures around it, so moving forward we can implement it.
That's a nice hard-hitting question. Web3. There you go. Nice. Anybody else have any questions? No? Okay, I'm gonna. Okay, sorry.
Sorry.
Oh, hi. Hey.
All right.
Hey, Shegun. How are you?
I'm all right.
Good.
Yeah. So, earlier when you're talking about how do you monetize content, so there's something that probably I've not seen locally. One thing about AfricaNXT is that our name, our everything actually has a meaning. So when you look at the space where we are, that is the tech space, I'm actually looking at things like, why don't we have creatives who can probably take out a startup and build like a story around it, and you work with them for like 5 years, 10 years. Like a few years ago, I have a neighbor of mine who was responsible for all the designs of GTB. The same person was around. When you see their building, their designs, you'll be wondering who, and it's a certain person, but that's in the fixed part. So what are the content where, although people name startups, on my own side, when I name startups, I give them some kind of African and you can build stories around it. Some of us follow, it's like some of this manga, you see Naruto, and you see there'll be a fashion industry that follows.
Godwin does something similar to that.
Like that. Exactly. So I feel some startups with blockchain work on the budget, starting from their small scale and growing from that perspective. And now my question, how do you work on the IP for such?
Is that to me? Okay, I wasn't expecting a question. Okay, so typically IP, you've got the trademark, so I don't want to turn this into a workshop, but the name of your project has to be protected because you can monetize a name. So I always give, since we're in the comic animation mood, I always give Marvel as an example. So Marvel itself, the word, is protected, it's trademarked. And global companies like Marvel will go as far as trademarking all over the world. Trademarks are territory by territory. So if you protect in the US, you're not protected in the UK. You need to go out of your way to protect in various territories. So that's one. And then I believe Ayodele alluded to the actual, the comic book, the scripts, the screenwriting. you need to protect it once you write it. If you write it and hide it under your bed, nobody knows it exists. So one easy trick is to email it to somebody or to post. I think I got that trick from the US. You post the script to another person, to a third party. Or in Nigeria, what we do is we lodge it with the NCC, okay? So there's different ways to go about it. But the truth is, with copyright, once you've written out your script, you've created your characters, you have a lovely story, and say you publish it on YouTube, it's copyrighted automatically. So copyright is automatic in certain instances. What is not automatic would be things like patents, inventions, things like that. So you need to go a step beyond. So when you think about something like Lego, for instance, Lego, yeah, that has a patent on it because it has a specific design, etc. But for people who are into content writing, once you publish it on a website, in a journal, in a book, it's protected, which is why you get people saying, oh, do you mind if I cite your name? Do you mind if I credit? Credits in the entertainment and the creative industry are so critical. Credits are everything. If you don't credit, it's almost like you're stealing somebody else's work. It's almost like you're taking someone else's work as your own. So it's a very sensitive industry. And then you also want to talk about fair use. At what point can you be inspired by someone else's work and adapt it to make it your own without being sued? There's something called fair use. So fair use allows people be inspired by other people's work without the risk of being sued. But with fair use, you typically would, notify who it is that has inspired you. Maybe you want to do an adaptation. Maybe it's a song that you really like. I think there was a situation where Nicki Minaj did a cover, but didn't tell the person, and there was a whole dispute about it. All they would have wanted was just a heads up. Hey, I'm going to be using the hook or track, but they didn't. And right now, everybody's hungry. Everybody's eyes are red. So if you don't do something as little as, oh, I like your hook. I like that bit of the melody. Can I use it? They might ordinarily say fine, but because you didn't, it blows up into something else. So creatives, if you're any creatives in the house, please always give credits. If you're going to go a little further and do an interpolation or something, you need to ask permission. You'll be surprised. They'll let you use it for free. I think a lot of the time we're so scared that people are going to charge. So we just try and use other people's work without saying. But guess what? When you are inspired by somebody else's work, they are honored. They feel inspired, and usually they'll let you get away with it. But if you don't, another good example is "Every Breath I Take," the song by Sting, which was used by P. Diddy, and when Notorious B.I.G. died, and he made that song in his honor. Something as simple as sending a word to his team. Oh, we love Every Breath I Take. We want to use the hook for our song. They didn't. And right now, I believe P. Diddy's team has to pay, his company or whatever has to pay, I think, close to $4 million a year, lifetime. Am I right? The guy at the back, since you're from the States. So just to show you, in the creative industry, it's a community. We're supposed to be like this tight-knit. So when you go out and you don't say what you're doing, it then kind of causes issues. So that's kind of, what I want to share.
Follow-up.
Yeah, follow-ups. Yeah, go on.
Follow-up question.
Follow-up question, go on.
Good afternoon. My name is Victor Anyanwu. I'm a content creator. All right, so on the average, how long does it take to resolve these kind of cases? Like in Africa, Nigeria, somebody takes my content somewhere, how do I find out? What if, some strange, maybe Rwanda, I don't know, one strange country somewhere, you understand? How do I find out that my content is there, being used, maybe in whatever form? All right, how do I find out? Then two, how do I deal with it? How long does it take? You know, what do I need to do? Just, briefly. All right, thanks.
Sorry. Does anybody want to answer that? But I have a very cheap, free remedy. So there's something on Google. Google has a tool which I use. So I can't quite remember the name of the tool, but you put in the keywords that you own. So for instance, I do it with my name. I want to know everything that comes out in the news online that has my name in it. Okay? I also use it for my companies.
Oh.
It's a
Google Alerts.
It's
Google
Google
Alerts.
Alerts. It's Google Alerts. So you set up your Google Alerts, if any, yeah. So it's free and it's fantastic and it works very well. So anything that happens with that name, it will flash up. It could be a news article, it could be a report, anything that comes online with your content, it would come up. So that's a cheap, easy way to track. But trust me, there are some more sophisticated
What if they rename?
platforms.
They could rename it something else.
Okay, so if you're talking like plagiarism, that's going to be more difficult. So someone who has a website somewhere and they go and plagiarize your content, to be honest, it will be very difficult it will be very difficult because it's different where someone is misusing your brand and passing off in another, but if someone has taken your content and literally cut and pasted somewhere else, it's a hard one. It's a hard one, I'm not gonna lie. It's a hard one, especially if it's in a completely different territory to you. But the good thing is, if you do find out, there's something called a cease and desist. So you engage a lawyer, and we've done some of these before at our firm. A cease and desist to bring it down immediately. Yes, and in fact, the good thing is, platforms like YouTube are they're working hand in hand. Maybe Roger might want to talk about that because he has stuff on YouTube. They're working hand in hand with YouTube creators. If anything that infringes your content is uploaded, it will flag up. It will flag up. So for instance, if you made a film and somebody goes and uploads it to an African movie special website, it will flag up. This content does not belong to you, and they bring it down. So the platforms are really trying, but I think maybe I should let Godwin talk a bit more on that, because you were part of the YouTube Black founders, weren't you?
Yeah, definitely. So with the copywriting and all of that, looking at the various mediums of art, it's always very different. I will give a very practical example. We had worked on a film, our last work. It's presently titled Omola, but that was not the original title. The original title was Tomorrow's War, and it was a title I loved because it came from a place of love, and I was like, this is it. And then the production company we were working with reached out to us. They just sent a long mail. Okay, there's a Hollywood film it's coming out next week. It's Tomorrow War, so we can't ensure that they sue us, even though we're making a short film. And so it was a sad moment of we just have to change the name. So it's also like that's like the mediums at which it comes at times are very, very different. Sometimes it's not like copy and paste. Sometimes it's just using similar names and identities. But with YouTube, just like she rightly said, YouTube has a copywriting system already in place. Once you work on original work in the sense that you don't have somebody's music playing at some, because there's also that, if someone maybe copies that video and puts it in his own edit somewhere, there's a particular panel under your YouTube studio. It's a place under your YouTube studio where you get to see the number of videos that have content from your, So, platforms like YouTube have put a lot of work into copywriting, but the other ones are just there, sha.
Okay. Oh, any questions? Okay.
Hi, my name is Oiko. I do branding.
Hey, Oiko.
Hi. I think that the makeup of this panel is really interesting, and the question I had related to something you kind of touched on, where you have these big platforms, the Netflixes and all these people telling us what kind of content we want to consume, and they tell us that by the amount of money that they're willing to back, like the projects they're willing to back, right? I had a friend that had a very innovative concept for like, well, not even innovative, just interesting for crime, political crime, drama, set in Lagos, pitched it to Netflix. They were like, no, we want wedding party. You know, like, the people, that's what the people want. That's what's gonna make money, wedding party. You know, and I think it's the same thing that happens in like advertising. You know, it's always somebody shouting, buy your product now. And it's like, I mean, you say this is what we want, but you talk to like the typical Nigerian person, they watch K-drama. Do you know what I mean? Like they watch, like, you know what, I don't think we're multifaceted people. I don't think we're so, you know, like everybody wants a wedding party, you know. So how do we, I guess, start to take control of that narrative? Because every single person who does something, you know, that's like that, right? Animation or untold stories or documentaries or special effects, like how can we actually start to take back control of, you know, what we want to consume?
Okay, let me just quickly take that. I think taking back control means you have to have control first. Yeah. So, and I think that's how I think that's how I've been able to solve it. Because I'm into animation, and like I said, I have some very crazy thoughts in my head. One of the things that we did last year was to do a Kickstarter campaign. You know, we did a Kickstarter campaign, and it was so successful that right now we're getting the likes of, yes, I remember we tried to work together, you know. And then, because the truth is, they run a business as well, you know, and until you can prove to them that this would actually generate attraction, there are numbers behind the views for this, they may not really believe you. And the same thing happened with my series in France, you know. You need to have something else. And I think, one of the things I think we need to learn as storytellers is to find a way, I don't want to use the word compromise, but balance, you know. Maybe you're doing a political drama, but then maybe the lead actor there has a love romance. You know, you just throw it in, sprinkle it somewhere in there, you know. Because for me, I realized that it's better you move from known to the unknown. You know, even when you're making your pitch deck, they will always tell you, what does this film look like? So you have something that's already made a success somewhere before that you can attach to it, and then you can throw it in there. Oh, yeah, this looks like something we're working on. I remember back in the day, a film like Shantytown would never have been made.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes. But right now, Shantytown, you know, is having traction because of what that day has done previously on other projects. So the truth is, there are some people who are pioneers. I like to believe I am one, who are coconut head breakers. You are the one that breaks the coconut, and others get to eat, you know, thereof. You know, so I think that's very important for us as storytellers. As much as you want to say this is what I want, you must be willing to also throw in things that are already known around you.
I like that so much.
I've got something little to add to that.
Oh, please add tomorrow.
I think there has to be kind of like a merger between, and I would say us is, as he said, data, but also finances as well. I think, so how does the film industry work? Either the distributor pays you to make the movie, aka Netflix, and they'll give you these requirements, have one gay character, have this, have that, and you sell and package to them. But there's also the other element of financing your own films. And this is where I'm very passionate about building a community of African financiers.
You need to talk to her.
Financiers. Because that's what we did with Journey, right? We got a very passionate African investor who invested in it. We took it to the Netflix themselves, and they're like, yeah, right, okay, let's do it for you. And it ended up being this huge success. And then they realized, oh my God, we want documentaries. And even in Africa, what did they say? We want documentaries like Journey on African Comedy, but you rejected it when we brought it.
Exactly.
So at the end of the day, if we really want to have power and control to what even brought me to this position in the first place, it is that you must understand that you need to have the business acumen to understand your financing, as well as your ability to sit down and do your research and come, as you said, with a solid pitch. Whenever I go to my investors, I don't just go like, oh my God, this is a great story. I go with the facts. I go and speak to them about the things they want to hear, which is how much is this going to make me, how long is it going to take to get a return on my investment, etc. And when you can present that to them, then you're secure enough to say, okay, you know.
So you have to know your facts. Okay, we have been told to cut, but can I just give them 15 seconds each? Just closing remarks, 15 seconds.
I think I would really like to close with her question.
Okay.
So, also from an argument, because there was this talk of, we had a conversation with Film One, and the guys that own, the cinemas. And of course, data actually shows that people really come out to watch these films, Wedding Party, AY films, and all of this, comedy themed films. They have data backing up, that statement. And I was kind of discussing with my brothers, like, what would be a way forward? How would you have Nigerians be more interested in genre films? And I came up with a sort of like understanding that with America as an industry, or with the Western film industry as the whole industry, they make as much bad films, as the good films you see.
Yes.
There's a balance, to it. And apart from that, you have production studios who are dedicated to particular kind of, genre-based films. Just like she rightly said, with us here, it's project-based, it's not a business. A24 concentrates on horror, films that would make you scream at your TV and make you turn the TV off. So basically, I think like that would be a way forward, having, businesses who are concentrated in telling particular kind of stories, particular ways, and we don't have a lot of that here, so yeah, I just wanted to add that.
Tamara, quickly, because we've been talking. Okay, good. Okay, while you're dealing, what do you want to say? Closing remarks.
All right, closing remark is that Lagos Comic Con is happening again this year. And one of the things that I am trying to do is to develop a niche in animation, and that's why we started this academy to train young people on animation and get them excited about it, and also to build a niche.
Yes.
So last word, please contact me. Let's do business. Animation is the key. Yeah.
Nice. Chairman, last but certainly not the least, closing remarks.
I think for me, it's just basically collaborate. And we also need, I guess there's the pressure on the filmmaker to be everything. You shouldn't. You need service. You need like professional services. You need lawyers. You need You need people who would pitch, who would package, investment bankers. We need that ecosystem. So if you are interested in coming into the industry, think about all the other elements that you can come in as. Thank you.
This has been an awesome session. Thank you so much. We are done. Thank you. Picture protocol.